Well, good afternoon and welcome. I believe we've got everybody in from the waiting room at the moment. I'm Lisa Robinson. I get to be your host this afternoon for our Connecting Entrepreneurials webinar. We will be talking about the Healthy Food Financing Initiative. We have a great panel for you today and presentation, and I hope you're going to have some great questions for us at the end. I do want to take a moment to shout out to our planning team for the CEC webinars, as I'm not sure who might be on the Zoom or not with us today. So if you are, just give us a wave. Jackie Spainhauer, my colleagues at MU, Brittany with the Callaway County Chamber of Commerce, and Rebecca with the Green Hills Planning Commission. And we're also receiving help from our conference planning team, Ashley Allen Brown and Dina Dohe. So we're excited for our upcoming Connecting Entrepreneurial Communities Conference. It'll be held September 30th through October 2nd in Excelsior Springs. Registration is open with a deadline of September 15th, so coming up very soon. My colleague Jackie is going to drop a link in the chat for you, but we would like to give Excelsior Springs just a moment. I believe Lindsay is on with us. Just a moment to talk about Excelsior Springs and what's in store.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, we are very excited to welcome all of the attendees to this year's conference. We've got a pretty amazing lineup of speakers, all from MU or local or some of our, special speakers coming in. So I don't think anybody's going to be disappointed in those breakout sessions. Special highlight is our closing keynote speaker, Jeff Siegler of Revitalize or Die. Thank you to the Clay County Extension Council for the sponsorship on helping us get him here. So I think it's going to be a ton of amazing information, and all of our small businesses in downtown can't wait to open their doors and welcome everybody in and see how we do things in our community. And hopefully you can learn something from us to take to your community. So register early and or by the 15th, and we look forward to seeing you at the end of this month.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. Glad you could join us today. So I'm super excited to hear from our webinar panel today about the Missouri Rural Food Access Partnership and the statewide Healthy Food Financing Initiative. And I would like to thank each and every one of them for stepping up to participate in our event. We're delighted they can join us, and it's really exciting to see the statewide collaboration to address food access in Missouri. I'm going to turn it over to our panelists for introduction, and we will let Amanda go first.
Hi, everybody. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, perfect. I got a weird message. My name is Amanda Berry. I'm a food security policy manager for Empower Missouri. And the Healthy Food Financing Initiative is one of my biggest projects that I'm currently working on. And I will pass it over to Bill.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bill McKelvey. I'm with University of Missouri Extension. I work primarily in the business and communities area and do work related to food systems and food security. And I will pass it to Luke, and then from Luke, we'll go to Stephen.
All right. Hi, everyone. Yeah, my name is Luke Dieterle. I am located in Columbia on the MU campus. So I'm with MU Extension. I'm part of our regional economic development team. And this has been a really great project to work on. So I'm happy to share with you all.
Great. And I'm Stephen Westbrooks. I'm the executive director for the Southern region for a community development financial institution called IFF. And our role is to support healthy food access projects, get access to capital for their projects. And I'm located in St. Louis.
All right. If it's okay, Lisa, I'm just going to kick it off and kind of go over a little bit on what a Healthy Food Financing Initiative is. The way that I kind of look at this is building the Healthy Food Financing Initiative for the state of Missouri is the project, and the Missouri Rural Food Access Partnership is the group of people who are tasked with completing this project. So this is kind of just an overview of what it is. It's a regional, state, or national program that provides technical assistance, grants, and loan products to fund the planning and development of healthy food retail and healthy food enterprise projects. These are projects that will improve or expand access to healthy foods. Many people are familiar with the term food deserts. There's also the term areas of low access or very low access, and it's really referring to geographical locations in which people don't have easy or close access to groceries and healthy food. The difference between food retail projects and enterprise projects, historically, when a state or an organization was doing healthy food financing projects, it was pretty much brick and mortar buildings, and that would be food retail. So like a building, a facility, you could go and somebody could purchase food. But we realize in a lot of our rural areas, just plopping a grocery store may not actually be the best solution. And so those enterprise projects are more things like maybe mobile markets or delivery services, other kinds of outside of the box projects that would still improve food access. Also, and one of the reasons why, Stephen is one of our grant partners, or IFF is one of the grant partners, some of these projects may not be eligible for conventional loans. They may be a little riskier, or they may be a startup. And so we are working to build a group of CDFIs to help finance some of these projects in addition to grant funds. So our overall grant period was 3 years. It began in July of 2024 and will end in June of 2027. And these were kind of our deliverables. We are engaging eligible rural counties in the Missouri EATS program, which we'll speak to a little bit later. The purpose of the Missouri EATS program is to build a pipeline of fundable projects so that whenever we actually launch, we can begin funding projects. And then also building stakeholder engagement with the Missouri Rural Food Access Partnership. And like I said, those are the people that are really setting it up. We're all coming together regularly for virtual meetings and in some in-person meetings to kind of determine what we want this to look like for our state. Something unique that Missouri's done, like I said, the first Healthy Food Financing Initiative project began over 20 years ago. So we're by no means the first. And we've kind of analyzed what other places have done and how they've done it, their successes and their failures. And so something unique that we're doing is really taking a whole food system approach. We believe that every sector of the food system wheel, this graphic on the left, was created by the Missouri Extension, that every sector of that, there is room to improve healthy food access. And so we're really trying to be strategic in how we're looking at this to incorporate the entire food system. These are things that we've already done. We have analyzed existing food access data. We have a report on that we're kind of all combing over and going through. We have launched the statewide food access survey and network analysis. Our first 2 counties in year 1 for the Missouri EATS was Nottoway County, and that's up in the northwest corner, not exactly the corner, but northwestern Missouri, and then Mississippi County, which is down in the southeastern part. We have begun engaging individual and organizational partners. Our food access partnership, I believe, is up to close to 60 partners. We held our inaugural in-person meeting back in April in Columbia. And then we just recently, this last month, onboarded community representatives into the Food Access Partnership. And those are people that are participating on behalf and as a voice of their community. This is where we are right now. We just began year 2 in June. And we're still working to identify and address membership gaps. We will be recruiting people into the Food Access Partnership probably for the entire duration of the grant and the project. We began engaging the community representatives in this work, kind of onboarding them. They participated in our most recent meeting. We are currently working on building that food system-centric framework. And then we're documenting, Empower Missouri, we have a communications team. And so our side, does some publications, some weekly perspectives online, taking photographs in some of the MoEats communities, and just kind of, documenting the work that we're doing and sharing that with the public. I have recently began more education for our elected officials. I've spoken to some representatives and senators just to let them know that we exist and what we're doing. From the conversations I've had so far, they're very excited and very supportive. Because, a lot of places in our state need increased healthy food access. And then we have began enrolling two more counties for the Mo Eats program. I cannot off the top of my head remember who they are right now. Maybe somebody from the extension team can speak to that because that just happened like within the last month or so. We did convene some meetings with some CDFIs, and maybe Stephen can speak a little bit to that. And then we have started, the Mo Eats team has started doing community roundtables. They just opened that to the public. And so that all started. Our year 3 is a little scant. It seems like whatever our plan is, once we actually get into it, the plan tends to change and we add on. So this is a plan for year 3, matching the framework with the funding opportunities, determining who's going to run HFFI after our grant is over. Where is it going to live? And then create and execute a plan to attract public and private funding. I'm sure by the time we get to year 3, there will be more things added to this list because that seems to be kind of how we've been doing this. I will stop there. And I don't know if I should take questions now or if you guys would prefer just to hand it over to the next speaker and then questions at the end, whatever you would like.
I will leave it up to your preference. If you would like to take questions now related to your slides, that would be perfectly fine. And I know we do have a question in the chat. How do you determine if your county is considered rural for this program? And if Bill or Luke's slides are going to address that, we maybe should hold that. And I see nodding, so we're going to hold that one.
I can speak to that.
Go right on ahead.
Well, actually, I'm going to let Luke speak. Why don't we go to Luke's slides? Because one of Luke's maps actually kind of gets to this point of how counties were selected. And maybe, Luke, you would like to speak to that because I think it's kind of covered in your slides.
Yeah, happy to. So the counties you can see that were eligible for that first round are in gold on that map on the left. And so you'll see that we did get some applications from communities that were not located in those counties, and we did consider those applications. It's just that we prioritized communities that were in these gold counties. So, if there was a really strong application that was outside of these counties, we definitely would entertain that. It's just that we, before we got started with this project, these counties were identified as high need. And, just that the impact of a healthy food financing initiative would have a greater impact in these areas. And so that was at least the reasoning behind why they were selected. And so this is kind of going back all the way to year 1, which Amanda had described a few slides earlier. That map on the right is a map of outlets. So that map started with me basically just Googling everything I possibly could. I assembled this massive list of, dollar stores, convenience stores, grocery stores, any place really that you could find food. And one of the benefits of Extension is that we have folks all over the state. And so what we then did with those, with that massive list is we cut it up. So each county had its own little list, and then we sent those out to our folks in the field to ground truth that information. So basically, all that meant was they looked at the lists, they would check if it was still there, cross it out if it wasn't, and then add anything that we might have missed. And so through that process, we were able to get a sense of what the food resources were in each of these communities. So that was really important for us to kind of set the table because we need that context when we're having these conversations about what's missing and what might be able to help. So we can go ahead and move to the next slide. So here is just a summary of some of the work we did in Nottoway. So as Amanda mentioned, Nottoway and Mississippi were our first two communities. And so all the data you're seeing here is data we collected from that survey that has been, it's actually actively being distributed now. So we ask all sorts of different kinds of behavior questions and consumption questions to try to get a sense of like just how people are interacting with the food system. And so in Nottoway County, you can see almost half of the folks that responded are actually already growing food at home. And then an additional quarter were interested in growing food at home. So that was a bit of a surprise to me, frankly. And 2/3 have purchased food from local sources. So that tells us, people here, there's an appetite for local food and they're actively seeking it out. And we also see over that half of the respondents are shopping for groceries at least once a week. 41%, although I doubt this one, are having 2+ daily servings of fruit and veggies. I don't know. That seems a little high to me. But we also have data on, how close grocery stores are. So, how far are you having to travel to get that food? And then we also, on the right, you can kind of see meal habits. So the left column there is prepping food at home. And then the right column is fast food or takeout. And so half of the respondents are preparing meals in their homes every single day. That also surprised me a little bit. But yeah, that tells me that, folks here really do care about food, right? And then we also have challenges noted there too. So, half of the respondents found food to be unaffordable. Folks are concerned about lack of money to be able to afford food. 1 in 3 have actually skipped meals. And, there's also things like not having enough time to shop or cook, or, there's just not healthy food options nearby. So this survey really helps us kind of flesh out that food system picture that, from that previous slide, you can kind of see on a map where the food is, but the survey really helps us understand how those folks there are actually interacting with their food system. And so all of this can then help inform us when we try to find a solution that can eventually be financed and stood up.
Well, that's a great segue, Luke, to kind of getting into our Missouri Eats program, which is one of our community engagement tools with this healthy food financing initiative. This is an MU extension program that's really focused on engaging communities and having conversations about what are the opportunities in a particular place for enhancing or developing the food system, and what are some of the challenges or some of the barriers that need to be overcome. And this is all focused on really enhancing community health and economic well-being. So how does Missouri Eats work? So the EATS stands for Engage, Act, and Transform. And so those are the 3 kind of primary components. We want to engage a broad range of community members to identify those strengths and the challenges in a local food system. We want to act together to create a plan developed with community input, ultimately to lead to transformation in some form or fashion, to hopefully make lasting changes to create a more resilient community-based food system that works for all community members. We've found that there are a number of benefits and potential benefits from this program. So we see strengthened connections between food producers and consumers and all types of people and organizations along that value chain. The program helps to facilitate conversations at different levels within the community. So we seek to get input from community members, from agencies, from organizations, from elected officials as well. And really, this program gives us an opportunity to capitalize on opportunities that require this kind of multi-sector collaborative approach. We know that one person with one idea is great, but typically it takes multiple people, agencies, organizations to make something happen. And through this process, those different people and entities can get together, work together, and build relationships. A little about our history. So we adapted a program from the Oregon Food Bank that was called Feast. That was a program that was active in almost every county in Oregon. So they worked in urban areas, they worked in rural areas. They had great success. Prior to and up through 2020, we had 4 pilot communities. So Pine Lawn is in North County, St. Louis. Smithville is north of Kansas City. We also did some work in Dixon and Pulaski County, and then also in Montauk County. With this opportunity, Amanda had mentioned the Nottoway County and Mississippi counties that were included in the first year. And then through the chat, you've probably seen mention of Dade County. Also, Berry and Lawrence counties are sort of paired up as a unit. And then we'll be doing a somewhat abbreviated version of Missouri Eats in Harrison County. And going back to Luke's map about how these groups were selected, so those yellow counties were not just rural, but then he mentioned that they also had some indicators that sort of suggested that they had higher need or maybe higher rates of food insecurity than other counties in the state. And so between those two different sort of factors, the kind of rural nature of those counties, and then also what could be sort of determined through data related to their need, the project was sort of focused in on those counties. But again, applications are accepted from all over the state. And one of the advantages of getting applications from places outside of those counties is that through some of our roundtable discussions, we can begin to help those places make connections with like-minded people or organizations in those places. So really, partly through this process, we're trying to surface interest in this concept in general. So whether it's the community engagement through Missouri Eats, whether it's more of the statewide work through the partnership, we're trying to sort of find out who's interested, and then work on finding ways to connect those people to move this entire initiative forward. I think I just have one more slide, and then I'll turn it over to Stephen for a few comments. One way to keep connected with this and related work is through this newsletter that I run. I'll put a link in the chat when I'm done talking. If you have your phone ready and you can scan that QR code, that takes you to a sign up for this Food and Farm Connector newsletter. That's just one way that we try to keep people connected, share information, and again, really kind of work to advance this entire initiative. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Stephen for a few remarks, and then I think we'll get into our conversation.
Great. Thank you so much, Bill. As Amanda mentioned at the top, my role with the collaboration is very specific. When you start talking about collaboration, innovation, and you look at systems that are challenged, like the food system or other systems too, like the early childhood education system, healthcare system, that's when you can really start thinking about a CDFI. And CDFIs are really mission-driven lenders. So we have a lot of similarities to banks, but we actually serve a purpose for community, in that our goal is to ensure that projects, in this case, healthy food access projects, have the access to capital that they need. And so IFF has pretty deep experience in other states working with other collaborations to make sure that capital flows into communities to support projects that maybe a traditional bank might not have the capability or wherewithal to support. One of the things that's true about the CDFI industry is that it's also very collaborative. So Missouri actually enjoys at least 14 CDFIs that typically operate from St. Louis or Kansas City, but have statewide coverage. And so one of the things we spent time doing in year one, or maybe at the very beginning of year two of this grant cycle, was to connect the CDFIs that have an interest in lending into or otherwise supporting with other resources healthy food access projects. And so there's different CDFIs have different objectives. And in the case of an IFF, our objective is to support innovative, healthy food access projects who are sponsored by nonprofits. And so when you start thinking of innovation around food as medicine, or you start thinking about food delivery through the education system, that would be a good role for a CDFI like IFF to bring real resources and be able to lend into that project to help ensure that that project has the capital it needs to move forward. I would also say another role would be bridging grants, bridging contracts. And so just ensuring that the money is coming into these projects at the right time. A lot of the projects and the way that small business works is that cash flow can be very uneven. It can be very uncertain. So having a CDFI partner who's a flexible source of capital is a really important aspect of developing an entire network that can support a healthy food, an innovative healthy food access system in the state of Missouri. Other CDFIs are focused on startups, small business startups, or are focused on supporting immigrants who may be located in any geography in the state, but may be looking to start a small business related to food production. And so our objective was to make sure that this work got connected with all the CDFIs in the state that have a capability around providing capital, so that as we see different projects and as we help incubate different projects in the various counties, that access to capital is not a barrier for those small businesses or for those organizations or for those projects that are really innovative, that can really contribute to a healthy food system in the state of Missouri. And so that's been our role. I think that we're off to a really great start. We have precedent in other states. IFF was involved with another collaboration in the state of Missouri. That was a collaboration between the Kansas Health Foundation, K-State, and another small CDFI called Network Kansas. And that initiative is in year 8 and has supported the development of a number of healthy food access projects, including retail, grocery, et cetera. One of the things that we're going to spend time doing here in year 2 is looking at other systems in other states and looking at how they were able to deliver on some of the innovation and ideas, processes and models that have worked in other states, and really trying to learn best practices from those and leverage that experience. And that is something that our CDFI colleagues who have experience lending into other healthy food access projects, either in the state of Missouri or outside of the state of Missouri, can bring into this work. So that's the CDFI role in a nutshell as it relates to healthy food access. So I can turn it over. I'm not sure who is speaking next, but happy to answer any questions.
So we are open for questions right now. I want to thank our panelists today for just your amazing presentation and all the detail that you've provided us. We don't have any questions in the chat, but I do have a few prepared for you. So I will start with those. If any of you attending today have a question, you can raise your hand, you can put it in the chat, and we will just kind of roll from here. So the first question I have, Luke may have already answered this, but the rest of you haven't. Looking at the data that you've compiled already, you've only been 1 year through the project so far, was there anything that surprised you? And I know Luke said there was something that surprised him, but Luke, you may have others, or does anybody else have one that didn't expect that?
Yeah, I'm happy to add. I'd say this was actually more. Oh, I'm muted, aren't I? Nope, I'm not.
You're good.
Sorry, I've been on Zoom all day. Okay, so yeah, it was more of a qualitative data than a quantitative data point that was surprising to me. So when we were up in Nottoway County starting the whole Mo Eats process, there was a lot of chatter at my table, just kind of these informal mutual aid networks, and how important they were. There was a retired woman, and she was saying that she spends virtually all of her time sourcing food and getting it to her neighbors. And it was just, it was incredible, that effort. And it was a big surprise to me, just in the sense that that kind of activity is really hard to measure or find or know about. But it's really only through these kinds of discussions where we can kind of tease that out. And so that was really interesting to me.
I heard a similar story when we were meeting with people, recruiting them for the partnership, where there was like a convenience store and they just had like a back room and everybody that had gardens would just bring in their extra there and people could just come in and get it for free. And so it is really amazing how much, and kind of like Luke said, that it's not even being documented, but how much people are doing just within their own communities to increase access to healthy food.
And I'll just add, I think those examples kind of point out some of the challenges with kind of trying to use accessible data with projects like this. If you think about the USDA and their food desert locator map, you can gain a lot of really interesting information through that map and through that data source, but it doesn't capture these types of networks and exchanges and work that's being done really kind of on the ground at the community level. So maybe it's a little bit of a kind of a cautionary sort of tale with data in that, we can learn some things from data, but there's almost always more to learn when we kind of get into the work with communities.
Yeah, and maybe for me, not maybe surprised isn't the right word, but really encouraged at all the innovation that's already happening, and learning about all the interest in healthy food access and the different ways that different entrepreneurs, different organizations, different communities are already approaching this work. And so it's really encouraging because I think with some coordination, we have what we need, I think, to be successful. I think the elements are all here in Missouri. And I think there's a tremendous amount of momentum that has built organically and gets maintained organically in community. And so was just really encouraged, not necessarily surprised. That doesn't surprise me that people are figuring out ways to get what they need, but encouraged that that's happening at a rate that was a bit of a surprise to me. And I'm encouraged that, with some coordination and some planning and some data gathering, that I really think we're onto something.
I'll just kind of add to that, which is not really data either. I mean, I have been blown away by how much support there is for all of this work. And just you get people that are doing this into a room together and they're networking, with each other, and people are exchanging ideas and resources and sharing resources. And that in and of itself has just been really like inspiring. There's some of the things that campaigns that I work on, and it's like sometimes hitting a wall. This is not one of them. This is something that it's like other people are putting gas in the tank for us. And we're just, it's really great. It has been really great.
And the one thing that we noted when we started, that you all are a diverse group, you work for different employers. What does your collaboration look like in the context of this project? Like, give us some insight of maybe how easy it was to get together, how, difficult it was, obstacles. Give us some insight into that.
If it's okay, I think Luke and Stephen may have been around when the grant was written. I was not here when the grant was written, but I don't think I said in my What is HFFI presentation. Essentially, we applied for a grant. Empower Missouri partnered with IFF, University of Missouri Extension, and the Missouri Coalition for the Environment. And those four entities were written into a grant application to receive HFFI financing. And we won the grant. Actually, they made the application and kind of forgot about it according to Trina, and then all of a sudden found out, quite a bit later that they got this grant. And so that was how it began. And then you guys can jump in from there, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really huge credit to Trina and to Amanda, who are really the organizing, and others at the extension, I think have been really tremendous organizing forces within this initiative. I think with any collaboration, you don't know how it's going to go. And I think there's, fits and starts, but I think this has really been the partnership it makes sense. So the partners who are engaged, it makes sense. I think that we're all, we all have different employers and different roles, but the roles are certainly complementary. And so there's not a lot of overlap. And so I think that, some of the typical challenges Amanda, mentioned, running into a wall is, can be typical in collaboration, and collaboration can be, typically very messy. But I think when you have strong leadership that's really committed and organized and can help keep, the cats herded, whether it's like collecting data or setting up, public meetings, surveys, assigning different bodies of work, having that really strong coordinator and sort of harbor master, I guess, I think has been really key. But really having the right collection, I think, of diverse skill sets and sort of reasons to be a part of the collaboration, has really helped this work really well, because I think that what we're each bringing into the collaboration, we're able to leverage pretty effectively to date. And so it's been very entrepreneurial. We wouldn't be where we are without a strong organizing force. And I think the things that we do differently are really very complementary.
That was almost exactly what I was going to say. Sorry, Bill, if you wanted to go, I don't want to steal your thunder.
Well, I was just going to add to that. I think one of the advantages with this collaboration is that Empower Missouri is an advocacy organization. University of Missouri Extension is not. And so we can play very different roles with this work. And, MU Extension does a lot of education and training. We do some research and things like that, but we can't really be very active when it comes to taking a position on policy, for example. And I think for most folks who work in this space, I think they would tend to agree that we need the education and the training and the research, but to move some of these initiatives forward, it's probably going to involve some policy as well. So it's a great partnership in that way, and that Empower Missouri can play that sort of advocate role. And then obviously with the financial part of this, having IFF and Stephen part of this, again, that's an area that MU Extension doesn't do. Empower Missouri doesn't work in that space. So we have, as Stephen was saying, very distinctive roles, but I think it provides a lot of advantages for the overall project.
Yeah, I'd echo both Stephen and Bill. I think from the beginning, there was a very intentional, or there was a lot of intentionality behind who is being brought into the project. And as both Bill and Stephen have mentioned, every partner has a distinct role and a distinct competitive advantage. And that advantage is something that the others don't have. And so we're just way stronger than the sum of our parts, because we're able to get the information directly to the advocates who can spread the word, and then also get that information to the financiers who can actually, make that actionable. So all together, I think you take any one piece of us out and the project would suffer greatly. So I think it's really about clear roles, a competitive advantage, and strong leadership.
Awesome. Thank you. So again, you're a little over a year in. What's something different or new or additional you may do in this coming year with communities or with any part of the project that you didn't do last year, that you're like, oh my goodness, we should have done this?
It's I guess I can start. It's what the main lessons that I've learned, and I think the group would probably share this sentiment, is just and maybe this isn't even a lesson learned. We already knew this. Collaboration's messy, and working in communities is messy, and communities move at their own pace, and there are all sorts of different decision makers and influencers. And sometimes there's something that you're going to miss in a community, and sometimes it might be a big thing, and that might set you back a little bit, because then you have to repair some relationships. And I'm not suggesting that we've had a ton of issues with that here, but I'll just say one of our year one communities was raring to go, ready, like right off the bat, almost had their work done by the time we came to help them. Whereas our other community, it's a more spread out project. It's more dispersed. There's more moving pieces, and it's really kind of hit a lot of roadblocks. which is not to say it's not going to be a successful project. It's just that community has required a little bit more guidance than the other one. And so I think for us, it's just we've learned to tailor our process a little bit differently, so that we can kind of have a better sense of what the expectations are on the community's end from the get-go, so that we can hopefully avoid some of that with our year 2 and year 3 communities.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a lesson learned. It's more of an observation about something else. I think that has been has worked well in year 1, and along the lines of Luke's observation, but at more of a project level, is we're ready to help those that may need to take a little bit more time, but then the ones that are ready for action now and maybe ready to be connected with a partner outside of this collaboration, like we've been able to be responsive to that as well. And so I think, maintaining some flexibility within this collaboration, I don't think we have the ability to be super linear, right? And so we kind of have had to have been responsive to communities and to projects to say, there is a pathway that, you're innovative, you're ahead of the game, you're ready maybe to take on some capital now, or you're ready to move your project to the next phase now. And we can actually accommodate that and work with you and get you connected to the right place. So you don't have to wait, for the end of year 3, to actually launch or to take the next step that you might be ready for. And I think that, that is, that may be a result of some of the pre-planning that happened, with Trina and those that were really putting together that grant to really be thoughtful about some of the inevitabilities around some of the projects and communities that we might be engaging with. So I think that's just a really, that's a carry forward. Like that worked really well, sort of a lesson learned, but nothing was wrong. I just saw that happen real time. And that's absolutely something that, maintaining that flexibility and ability to be responsive and meeting people where they are, for better or for worse, is something I think that served us well in year 1 that we absolutely can carry forward.
I want to add too, our ability to pivot, I mean, like at the drop of a hat, has been fantastic. And, learning that in year 1, I think will just make us even more agile in years 2 and 3. As an example of that pivot, when they first put out the Mo Eats applications for round 1, we had to have 2 communities because that was written in our grant. And so everybody's just kind of holding their breath like, oh, I hope we get 2 applications. And then it wound up being like 16, I believe, 16. Yeah. And, well, now we have all these people ready to do something. We can only select 2. What do we do with the rest of them? And that's how the community roundtables were born. That wasn't even originally part of the plan. That's an example of us pivoting and keeping that essentially momentum going. And there's been a few other examples, essentially like what Stephen was saying, like people are like, I'm ready. My project's ready now, being able to find a way to find some financing. So our ability to just really be flexible, I think has been great. And we're learning from that.
I love that as a group, and how you have come together to then pivot on the dime and to know that there's a story behind the data. And we're actually very privileged today. I've got a little message that says we have a couple on with us today. Josh and Kim are here from Nottoway County. So if I could maybe put them on the spot for them to share about their year 1 experiences with this program, as some of us on the call are getting ready to support communities for year 2, and you all, of course, are ready and raring to go. So, Josh.
Whoa, you spotlighted us. How about that? Well, I appreciate it. And Luke, thanks for calling us out and calling us difficult, man. But Luke hit the nail on the head. It's been a learning process for us, and we walked in, we kind of had a plan, and then as we got into it, and Kim will talk to this more, I'm sure, but as we got into it, we found that what we tend to think in economic development circles isn't always what the rest of the community is thinking. And so we did walk away with some different initiatives, and one of those, and Luke was talking about that, was tied to creating these networks of food support in the not organized, or whatever you call it, just organic ones, I guess, that spring up. And that was really kind of a unique one for me, an eye opener for me that process that's happening, and how do we encourage that to grow was one of those areas that I thought was really an interesting take from some of the stuff we've done. But it's really opened our eyes up. It's we're still sticking to some of the topics we thought we'd be in, but we've had some new ones come up as well that are kind of becoming areas of focus. And truly, Kim is the one on our side that keeps everything kind of moving and going the right direction. So I'll turn it over to Kim. Quit talking.
Yeah, no, I think Josh is right. We had a plan going in, and that plan kind of shifted, and we've pivoted a little bit from that to we thought we might have something related to local foods and improving our local farmers market, and both of those have stuck. And we had an idea of a beginning farmer program, and that has stuck as well. But the new one was definitely this networking piece, and how do we try to create better food access for those who need it within our community, and try to bring these organizations together that are working in that space to make sure they have the volunteers they need to continue to do that work. And so that is probably the one group that Josh and I continue to try to reach out to and figure out what that work is that they're doing, because it's just not a space that we initially were thinking of, and is not that space that we both have worked in before. So it's different and very complex in trying to figure out all the different churches, all the different food pantries, different ways in which you can get grocery stores or other organizations to contribute free local food to those organizations to get that dispersed.
And for the record, Josh is a delight.
Do not inflate his ego.
I don't need any help with that. Happy to answer any questions you guys have about our experience. It's been a good one. We sure do appreciate the University of Missouri Extension choosing us and letting us be able to be a partner in that. It's been invaluable to us. We've had a ag committee who's been meeting together for years, and we were really looking for what's next. We've accomplished a series of things that they wanted, and we were trying to figure out what was next. And then this opportunity came up, and it's helping us shape our plans for the next 3 to 5 years. And so we appreciate that. Helps us keep moving in the right direction. Food security isn't exactly ag, but it is ag. So it plays into what we're doing. And so, again, we're using this to help shape our next 3 to 5 years, and then hopefully figure out what we do next and continue to grow and have momentum. So.
Well, I've got a question for you, Josh and Kim.
Okay.
Who maybe surprised you in your community, a group, an organization, or individual that joined in, and you're kind of like, didn't expect that, or it's like, wow, I didn't know you had an interest. Did you have any of those?
I'm being careful because I was surprised who wasn't at the table. And not at the initial meeting, but one of the people that was kind of a champion of this food network, we really thought you're going to be part of the solution here, because you see this as a problem, you see this as something we should be doing, and they kind of backed away, which was disheartening. That being said, that group continues to meet and continues to move forward. It just with different leadership and different people involved. That was probably the biggest surprise to me, is I think you see some people that have ideas and have some insight that pop up, share it, contribute, and then they back away. And that's good. It's fine, because they've created some positive movement, but they're not the ones that see it through. And that was kind of a shock to me, I think. Kim, you got anybody else?
When I think of who has come to the table, I think just the creative ideas. So we have an entrepreneur who has come to the table who's looking at doing kind of a mercantile. And just trying to figure that out has been extremely complex. And so for us to make that happen has really required our health department to come to the table. And so they've come to the table and are really talking through with us, what does that look like if we're doing a pop-up? What does that look like if they're going to sell their food within the retail space? And how does that work? And they're really trying to do it from an educational standpoint, not a punitive standpoint. And so that's really kind of opened that whole discussion for us as we look at moving our farmers market from its temporary location, hopefully to its permanent home, to a pavilion next year, of what kind of educational pieces do we need to put in place for those vendors related to food safety, marketing, but also just like insurance. Are they aware of if somebody gets sick on their food to the market, what kind of repercussions that could be? And so just really looking at the variety of educational things that we're going to do. So we're actually putting together 2 surveys now in our local foods group. One is for vendors or cottage businesses to see kind of what support they need, but then we're also going to do one from the retailer perspective and restaurant perspective of what local foods would you like to see, or what are some of the barriers that you're experiencing getting local foods into your facilities. And we're hoping to have a conference that will center around that, hopefully about January or February of next year.
Do you have advice for the year 2 communities that are joining the program?
I'd cast a wide net as you try to get people to come to the table. I think I was surprised to some degree by how wide that net, how many people showed up, or some of the people that showed up that you're not necessarily connected to anything, you just have an interest. And they had created great value as we had those conversations. I'd cast a net beyond your community a little bit. We had a couple of folks come in from other counties that surrounded us, and they contributed greatly to the conversation. And so for us, I mean, I'd cast a wide net as you look at involvement. I don't know, Kim, what else?
No, I would agree with you. I would look at your trade area and see who are those people who are involved within that and invite them to the table. Because it goes beyond your county or beyond your community.
Yeah. You guys are so nice. This is easy.
Yeah, I'm thinking they're going to steal all of our funders for November.
Yeah, I mean, Luke tells all kinds of horror stories about you all. Not really.
No.
He's a great guy. So our panelists, how can you encourage our year 1 folks who are here with us? And also, what advice do you have for our new communities joining in for year 2?
I'm happy to jump in. I know that finance and that can be intimidating to some folks who may not have experience with trying to raise capital. I think, CDFIs are really here to be supportive of community. And so it's never too early, even if you have an idea or, you may not think you're ready to start that relationship. I think one of the things that CDFIs are interested in is long-term sustainability of these projects and of these businesses. And so the sooner you can start that conversation and build that relationship and maybe kind of matriculate along the learning curve to prepare your organization or your business for the time where you may be accessing capital, I think the better. And so even if you may feel like you don't fully understand it, please reach out. If it's not to me, I'm happy to connect you to the appropriate CDFI that has interest in doing food lending or, supporting small business that are working in the healthy food access space. It's never too early, and it's never too late if you have a problem. CDFIs are here to help solve challenges as well.
A couple of things come to mind for me. One is that Josh is a great advertisement for Missouri Eats. And then also the statewide work as well, this idea of casting a wide net. You hit the nail on the head there, Josh. I think that's really important. Whether we're working within a county or like Amanda and Trina are working statewide. So that's a really important lesson and something to keep in mind. And then also, again, with both the local work and the statewide work, um, it's going to be a little bit messy. You're going to have a lot of different ideas surface. You'll have different opinions surface, and really just kind of being comfortable with that, a little bit of chaos and maybe a little bit of conflict even. This type of kind of community engaged work is hardly ever just goes from point A to point B to point C. It kind of happens in lots of different ways. So just kind of being aware of that and being patient with the process.
Something I would say is I think to not be afraid of engaging your government, whether that is at the municipal level or at the state level. If there is a policy that is prohibiting something you think would be an improvement to your food system or food access, that can be changed. If you realize that a new policy could do something to promote food access or your food systems or whatever it is that you're trying to work on, that can be implemented. So don't be afraid when you're collaborating with other community members and other organizations, to have those kinds of conversations and what can we do and how can we leverage our power and our voices to implement policies that can get us what we want. And we are here, Empower Missouri, to help do that. So if you need any help in that area, feel free to reach out. I'm sure my email will be somewhere on something, or I can drop it in the chat, and we can help you do that.
Yeah, and I'll add, there's just to echo Amanda, there are several communities in Missouri where folks have approached their local government and said, we're interested in this, we have a passion for this, we want to work on this. And then those cities have actually established like food policy councils. So I know there's one here in Columbia. I believe there's one in the Hannibal area. There's several throughout the state. And so a lot of the times this might not be on a local government's radar. But everybody eats, and the minute if you have a chance to bring it up, there might be an appetite to do something, and you never know until you ask. So that's something.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. We would love to get your feedback on our webinars this year. So my colleague Jackie has just put in the chat the link to our short survey. So if you would please click on that, give us your feedback. We appreciate that as we work to make our CEC webinars the best possible for you. We're also welcome to entertain topics that you want to learn about. So our next webinar is at a different time next month. It will be live stream from the CEC conference in Excelsior Springs. So we hope you can join us on October 1st, so October 1 at 1:45 p.m. Since it is a special webinar, it does require a separate registration, which Jackie has already put in the chat for you. So at this webinar, we get to hear how childcare partners collaborated and used the strategic doing process to unite providers, educators, and families in tackling Missouri's early childcare crisis. Discover how their collaborative, innovative approach is building a stronger early childhood workforce and how these strategies can be adapted to strengthen childcare systems in other communities. So we will also send out a link for that for you to have. So again, thank you for joining us today. Please don't forget to complete the survey, sign up for October, and we hope to see you there. Thank you so much.